top trends forecaster, joined us late last year in December, and now it's his first visit with us in 2011. Gerald Celente, founder of the Trends Research Institute in 1980. Gerald is a pioneer trend strategist. He's the author of several national bestsellers, and the website's trendsresearch.com. Obviously, Gerald, you know what the big story, the big issue is. It's not just the federal judge, a pro-Second Amendment judge, Roll being shot in the face and killed, or this poor Congresswoman Giffords being shot to the brain but surviving, and it looks like may recover with most of her functions intact. And this little poor 9-year-old girl, the father has said, don't use this for political gain, don't use this to take more liberties, and he went on to criticize the TSA. We now know the guy, reportedly from multiple neighbors, was taking a powerful hallucinogen almost on a daily basis. It appears that the best MO we've got is he was obsessed with the Congresswoman. So not only what happened with the shooting, but now this move to restrict free speech right on the heels of the FCC announcing internet controls, right on the heels of all these calls to restrict free speech, Second Amendment. It looks like the system really wants to use this to clamp down, but I've got the national polls out. No one is buying it. In fact, the polls are showing that people are becoming even more pro-Second Amendment after watching this. It seems like anything the mainstream media touches is turning to dust. Instead of having the Midas touch, they've got the, the touch of death here. The system it appears really in trouble. Give us your breakdown on the whole situation.
I think you've summed it up accurately. As we also know, this kid from the reports, he wasn't watching news or listening to talk radio. Just as they did with 9/11, Alex, they'll use any excuse they can to clamp down on freedom. It's one of the top trends that we're looking at, loss of liberty in 2011. The piece, by the way, is the Trends Journal will be out in a week or so, and the piece is written by Paul Craig Roberts on this very issue. So the trend to take our freedoms away from us has long been in the making, and they're going to use this excuse from this sick kid as an excuse to take more away from us. So the other important thing to understand, however, is that what the people want doesn't count. You look at poll after poll, they do what they want, whether it was the TARP bailouts or abrogating our constitutional rights. So it's going to be a fight for freedom to the end.
Continue along that line.
Well, they're not going to stop. As we saw with this piece of legislation, they're trying to push through with what they call net neutrality. Orwell couldn't have come up with a better name. And then we'll look what's going on the other aspects. They've brought Afghanistan and Pakistan to the good old USA with drones flying over our cities in Miami and in Houston, peering in your windows, following us to see who's good and who's bad. We saw our esteemed Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, the czarette, making a deal with Walmart to follow our every move and have people rat us out. I encourage everyone to go and look up that video on YouTube of Janet Napolitano beginning it by saying that Homeland Security starts in your hometown, and that if you see anything in the Walmart store or Walmart parking lot, to contact your authorities or your Walmart manager. Yeah, some guy making $62.50 a week in a hernia. I mean, yeah, like he's going to help solve the big problem. That notwithstanding, when you watch the video, the only thing missing is a heavy German accent from World War II era, because that's exactly what it sounds like. And then the other question becomes, all of this security to watch us, Who's watching these people that are watching us? What twisted brains out there are peering in our windows and seeing whether or not we're abiding by the law? So the fact of the matter is, Alex, this is the way it goes. It's old news to us. We put it in chapter and verse in earlier trend alerts and trends journals. As the economy continues to decline, as they continue to lose more and more control, America takes on the aspects of a third world nation. They take the lowest common denominator of society, the people that couldn't get jobs flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. These are the people they put out there for the goon squad. You see them when you go to the airport. These aren't the best and the brightest. Let's get this really straight. All of a sudden now, they become the people to feel you up. And they become the people who have no lives of their own to exert control over you.
Well, Gerald, that's what I've noticed coming in and out of the country or flying. A lot of these people, it's like they're trying to act thuggish. They're trying to intimidate you. They're trying to bug their eyes out at old women and people with kids. Most of them can hardly speak English. I noticed they're hiring people from police state nations that this is their status now. They came from places with sewage running down the streets, and I've been all over the world. You are very well traveled, and growing up, we knew third world countries had cops that acted thuggish and guys with machine guns on corners, and now that's coming to America, but with high-tech telescreens saying, watch your neighbor, and now they're on the news saying, we want to pass laws that if anything you say might upset other people, you're going to be arrested, and by the way, we want your guns, and by the way, we're going to blame this on anybody that's criticizing the Federal Reserve. I mean, they've named Ron Paul and myself on multiple programs all over print media, TV. I mean, this is blood libel. I mean, Sarah Palin, she's no, angel. She doesn't, know that North Korea is the enemy and South Korea is the ally. But still, she got this right. So a blind hog is, able to find acorns. I mean, I'll sure take her over a Barack Obama, but here it is. She said, when was it less heated? Back in those calm days when political figures literally settled their differences with dueling pistols? Since when are we collectively guilty and have to give up our rights and not criticize government when some guy who had literally took a hallucinogen, quote, almost every day and was, quote, a liberal and, quote, obsessed with her and put letters from her to him in his safe? I mean, this guy was, missing every knife in the drawer. His elevator didn't even go up one floor. And then I get to take the blame for this? And look at Illinois. A 66% income tax increase. They just passed it last night. Everybody's fleeing that place. It's going to look like Detroit if they keep it up. I mean, where is this going? It's insanity, Gerald.
As I said, we're moving into third world status. There are a lot of indicators. This isn't rhetoric. When I say this, you have it. For example, the gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States of any of the industrialized nations. You just mentioned Chicago, Illinois. That's the highest corporate tax rate, by the way, when you put state and federal on it, probably in the world. So this is what they're doing, and we're seeing the results of it. You're going to start seeing more and more outbreaks of violence, whether it's somebody out of their mind like this guy or people just fed up. By the way, right up here in good old Kingston, New York, I used to talk about that bank, the key bank I had trouble getting my money out of when they wouldn't give it to me because I wanted to keep it but for myself and didn't want them to hold it. And I mentioned that they got robbed twice. Bingo! 3 times in 2 years. They had another one this week. I can literally throw a stone and hit this bank. That's how close it is. You're going to see more and more of a breakdown. And as the breakdown gets worse, they're going to clamp down harder. because they're going to say we have to stop. It's going to be the campaign slogan, mark my words, of 2012. We got to get tough on crime. So as the system breaks down more, they're going to bring in more of the goon squads to keep us in check.
Well, you notice what they've been politically building is it's a paramilitary army designed for the milk cows, those of us that are law-abiding, pay the taxes. They're actually hiring a lot of the criminals now, just like the Nazis and the Soviets did. That's coming out to fill their ranks. And I've seen all over the country where they'll lay off 20%, 40, over 60 in some counties of the sheriff's deputies, and then announce, but the sheriff's deputies we're keeping, they're going to be revenue generation. They're not going to come respond to serious crimes like armed robbery. Now, even the Oakland police chief last year was talking about that. So they're telling you the cops are there to get your money, not to help you.
Well, of course, as I've said, and we'll be writing about it more in the Trends Journal, the police have become the enforcers for the crime bosses. The big guys are off limits. Have you seen any heads roll from Wall Street and all these criminal bank scams? And I love the white shoe boy language they use. Robo-signers.
Stay there, Gerald. Hate to interrupt. Got a break. We're going to come back. Let's start off there with the economy, with the fraud. I've got CNBC right here calling in your prediction. It's true. Housing market slips into depression territory. We've been there for a long time. Clinton has come out with another statement saying politics must change after the shooting. But now CNN, MSNBC, and others are reporting, talking to friends and family, he hated politics, saw himself as apolitical, and was basically obsessed with her. And that's what our article up on prisonplanet.com says. On Sunday, I called him as a nihilistic guy, rejected by women, into the occult to shock people. Just like Eric Muller said earlier. It's a game called Topper. They're trying to top each other and how radical they are. And he started taking a high-powered hallucinogen, quote, almost every day. That's his neighbors, his friends, his family, the Associated Press reporting. And it goes on to report, was the shooter in love with Congresswoman Giffords? Now the new headline up at Drudge. He did not watch TV. He disliked the news. He didn't listen to political radio. That is being reported here. And I want to get back into the economy. This is a short segment, but you got cut off by the break, Gerald Celente. You were starting to get into the things that are happening. But it's so incredible to actually see them from within hours of this happening trying to blame anybody who is seen as promoting lower taxes, smaller government, and the Tea Party movement, which the Republicans have tried to take over, but unsuccessfully. I mean, these really are authoritarians. They really are trying to end free speech. Do you think they're going to be successful?
Well, they are successful. Look at the mainstream media. They're nothing more than shills for Washington. But they're not going to be successful in the long term. Again, it's a give and take. As you know, one of the top trends for 2011 is journalism 2.0. And you're it. And I'm it. And it's all of these other it's out there that are putting out a different message. So as the message gets out there more and more, they clamp down on it more and more. So it's going to be a fight. In the end, we believe, however, that the voices such as yours and mine and many others is going to ring much louder than theirs, because when you look at all of the polls coming in, people are losing their faith in the mainstream media. And again, they're going to use any excuse they can to clamp down on any message that they don't want to hear.
And here's the deal. With True TV, Time Warner, we've now confirmed they did kill that episode on Police State under Homeland Security threats behind the scenes. The government didn't want this out in the open. They're threatening people to keep it secret. Now they've ordered all the DVR distributors to erase all the seasons, last year and this year, and they're starting to not air the old episodes as much. I mean, if they can get away with killing Ventura's TV show, and there's not any mainstream media coverage on it, why not kill all of the alternative media or alternative information that gets on mainstream media? I mean, this is really happening.
It is happening, and it's going to continue. As I said, the more the economy declines, you were just, at the break, you mentioned a piece that just came out on CNBC.
Yes.
What was it?
Oh, well,
about housing?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's what we were going to get to next, and then I digressed. Its housing market slips into depression territory. And it says, as the economy revs back to life, I thought the recession ended a year and a half ago, with signs of hiring on the horizon, the housing market is being left behind. And it goes on to say, in the past few years, we've been careful to choose the words carefully, not calling it a recession until it fit the technical definition and avoiding any inappropriate use of the D word, depression. And then they go on to say, but now, looking at the numbers, we have to report that this is a depressionary situation. And that's them saying depression with cooked numbers, Gerald.
I know. And let's get a couple of things straight here. Number one, all the money the federal government has put on our shoulders to boost up this phony housing market to begin with. Number two, remember all the tax breaks they gave the people to buy those homes to sucker them into the market, a Ponzi scheme that we paid for. Number three, as you read that propaganda that you just read, as employment numbers rev up, let's get this straight. When they began this stimulus package under Obama, they said they were going to create 4 million jobs. Last year, 1.1 million jobs were created. At that rate, accounting for the new people moving into the system, it would take until 2030 just to get back to levels before the recession began. Number four, Obama said, and his brilliant Larry Summers and others, that with the stimulus program, that in 2010, we'd be looking at an unemployment rate of 7.5%.
Another lie. Stay there. What Gerald Celente was just getting into is so important. It's not just that you're sliding into a depression in the last 2 years, according to every real economic measurement, but that they continue to lie about it and change their stories weekly. We're going to be discussing some of their, quote, predictions that have all proven to be lies. They know they're lying, versus what Gerald Celente, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, and so many others have documented here on this broadcast. You notice they're pushing back right now, but they're scared. They're trying to intimidate us to shut up because they know that they are not invincible. In fact, they're weak because they've engaged in so many crimes. It's also important to support local station sponsors. It's important to support the people we bring on here, whether it's Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Gerald Celente, you name it. It's important to check out trendsresearch.com and subscribe to that important journal. As we grow the alternative, real Media 2.0, as Gerald puts it. Now, Gerald, you were getting into, so please recap, all their lies. You'd gotten up to point 4. I was reading out of this CNBC report. Housing market slips into depression territory. You've been saying that for 2+ years. Every other economist or trends forecaster we have on. We know real unemployment's above 22%. They're saying it's 9.7. And then they have this Orwellian statement here, as the economy revs back into life with signs of hiring on the horizon, the housing market is being left behind. What are they talking about? Please continue.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that in what you're saying about supporting the people to keep your show running, as you well know, the folks here wear diamond gusset jeans, and we also have our supplies of efoods.com. And it's very important also to re-look at, if you haven't gotten it yet, the Obama deception and the fall of the Republic. And particularly, give it to your wimpocrat friends who believed in change you could believe in and believed in hope. Because as you have done so brilliantly in those productions, by bringing the people that you did on to outline what was going to happen, It's falling out exactly as predicted. And if you need any more proof of who's running the White House, look who Obama just brought in as his new chief of staff. Another Daley from Chicago. And where did he come from? Oh, he was the chief lobbyist for J.P. Morgan Chase. There's some more change you can believe in. And you look at the other guy who he just brought in to take over the place of the brilliant Larry Summers, Gene Sperling. And what was he famous for? I think it was helping to deregulate the Glass-Steagall Act under the Clinton administration. And isn't he a lot of great change? Because he had the same position under the Clinton administration that he now has with the Obama administration.
And we have the architects of Glass-Steagall and the tens of trillions in derivatives, well, 1.5 quadrillion total, impossible to pay back. The Daleys are admittedly the kings of the Irish mafia, going back almost 100 years. You've got I mean, all these other mafias, the Rahm Emanuel Mafia and others running around. I mean, this is so brazen, and when you got cut off by the break, you were bringing up in the last 2-3 years how we were told after the stimulus, after the bailout, it's all going to turn around, and oh, we never entered a recession, or we left the recession in June of '09. I mean, they literally can't even get their lies straight, and they're in there stealing with both hands, and Obama's out saying, I'm not going to hire some Wall Street insiders, when that's all he's doing.
I know. Again, you know, everyone should get copies of the Obama Deception and Fall of the Republic and distribute them to everyone that you know, because the facts are there. How they began to lie and continue to lie. So as we go forward here, and, you know, I've been criticized. I want to make this really clear. We never said there would be a stock market crash. In 2010, I said that there would be a global financial crash of some sort. And we're seeing it with the European Monetary Union. Number two, when we made the forecast, we said, we don't know what schemes undreamed of they're going to come out with. Here it is. They shuffled under the table and funneled to their friends, as you well know, over between 13 to 20 trillion dollars in low interest or no interest loans to banks around the world, to hedge funds, to General Electric, to Harley Davidson, to Verizon, to the Bank of Japan, the banks in South Korea, in Ireland, in Spain, in France, in England, in Canada.
They sent money to MSNBC. They were funding thousands of companies. The details are still secret. And the truth is, they tell us we never had a recession. It's all lies. We're in a depression for the average person. Every economic number is there. And so what you're dealing with is people that are in a delusion. We see Portugal going under. We see Ireland. We see Greece. Obama deception, shot 2 years ago, right as Obama was being sworn in, released a month after he got in. Webster Tarpley, economist George Humphrey, yourself, all of our guests in there, and in my own analysis, with total precision, lay out who they work for, what they were going to do, what countries would go down first. Greece, Ireland, Portugal, then we said it would spread, and then finally into the rest of Europe and the United States, and now all over the financial news, they admit it's inevitable, and then we predict it absolutely correctly, and then they spin it and say, depression? Recession? What does that mean? All they do is play this mind game. It's all hoaxes. Just like they say Rush Limbaugh made this guy shoot this woman. Turns out he doesn't even listen to Limbaugh. He was a liberal drug addict in love with her. I mean, it's hoax after hoax after hoax, but the good news is nobody's buying it.
And here's some more. I mean, they never stop with this. Look how they're cooking the inflation numbers, so people that need their cost of living increase under COLA aren't getting anything. They're saying that food and fuel shouldn't be into the core inflation index. This is perfect Soviet Union era twisting. Oh, and here's a good one, Alex. Today the stock market rebounded because the bond sales in Portugal, they were very good. China and Japan are pumping money into Europe to keep this Ponzi scheme afloat. So, yes, it's collapsing. It will collapse. There's no stopping it. And here's the real bad news. It's going to be followed by war. Add it up. You hear the minister, economic minister of Brazil, Manteiga, week after week, month after month, screaming there's a currency war. All of the nations are trying to intervene to keep their currencies from not increasing too much because the United States and China are devaluating theirs, so they can't export. Then you hear from Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, saying a trade war is beginning. Add them up. Currency wars plus trade wars equal real wars.
Yeah, China's becoming extremely threatening, openly talking about war, test-firing missiles now off the coast of Texas and California. And what's insane about this is Dr. Roberts described many years ago here and countless other economists, as this starts falling apart, as the dollar plunges, the Chinese, the EU, everybody, the Arabs, they rush in to try to prop it up because they're so invested in it. Then the euro starts going under. They run in, pumping their currencies in there, but then that devalues their currencies. So you have a concerted devaluation. But how do you know the implosion's about to become accelerated and really evident where they have trouble hiding it? That's once people have to pump up the dollar and the euro, they then stop buying as much of it. So they're still trying to prop it up because they're heavily invested from the old days, but they stop buying it. Now they're openly moving away from the dollar, openly moving away from the euro. Where are the Arabs and the Chinese and the Russians and the Brazilians investing in the Chinese currency for the first time ever? It's being traded worldwide. The replacement of the dollar as the world reserve currency has now gone into high gear, and everybody in New York and D.C. running this criminal operation and over in England and the rest of it, they know full well what's happening. All the rich people I know, and people, I know some billionaires and others, I know a lot of other people that know them, they've all left the country. They've got armored redoubts in the middle of nowhere all over the world. They're scared to death. They know what's going on, and they're mad that we're here warning people about what they've done, Gerald.
That's right, but look what's going on. Again, current events form future trends. First of all, with China. We just saw Secretary of Gates over there yesterday warning the Chinese not to underestimate the power of the American military. Let's save it for the kiddies. They're losing over in Afghanistan. They can't win in Iraq. Now they're going into Pakistan. And just for a little bit of history, it was the Chinese that, with the North Koreans, that brought the armistice. The United States and South Korea couldn't defeat them. Just a little bit of history. It was the Chinese supporting the Vietnamese that made the United States withdraw from Vietnam as losers. And now they're going to say that the Chinese are underestimating our military strength as they show off, by no mistake, their new stealth fighter jets. By they now have their new weaponry, these missiles that could take out aircraft carriers and fleets of ships.
Our trains can't even go above 50. The rail lines are so old. China isn't just building 250-mile-an-hour train lines over there. They're now building them in the U.S. They own everything.
Yeah, they're bidding in California. They're bidding in California, and now they're in the process of buying up Europe. What do you think they're bailing out the banks for? They're taking over the industries, one after another. It's the golden rule. Those who have the gold rule.
The banks completely sold us out through pure treachery, and you notice the CFR a decade ago said the next century will be the Chinese century. They geared this whole thing up. Maury Strong and all of them have moved to China. They set us up. They sucked us dry. They blew us away, Gerald.
And look who the guy is. As you just mentioned, the Daley family who just moved in. You know what he was known for under the Clinton administration when he was Commerce Secretary? He was known as the NAFTA czar. He's the guy that was the brains behind pushing it through.
Incredible. Stay there.
The preacher man says it's the end of time.
Gerald Celente with us 5 minutes in the next hour. Then I'm going to have open phones and go over just masses of vital news and information. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. You know, Gerald, I love this modern media spin that we're being negative, we're hurting confidence with our, what was the New York Times called you a purveyor of pessimism porn, and they've called me a purveyor of conspiracy porn all over the news, Newsweek, Time Magazine, and others, when all we're doing is reporting on the spectacle of foreign banks stealing tens of trillions, NAFTA and GATT destroying our industrial base, China buying up the ports, the roads, taxes exploding. And then we're here saying, hey, this is a bad idea, and the government's answer is, shut up, don't upset people, we need to take your free speech away. I mean, if that's not bona fide tyranny, what is?
Well, it's, again, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. And as I've said many times, think of the word confidence. We're hurting the confidence. It's a con game, confidence, con man. That's all they are. And again, when I came out and said, listen, this real estate market is not going to correct itself, they're taking our money to pump it up, oh, you're a gloom and doomer. You're hurting confidence. No, we're stopping the con game, and they don't like it. You want to hear one for the books? Remember Judith Miller with the New York Times, the toilet paper of record? She was the one that pushed off the propaganda sent to her from the Bush administration, the Cheney neocons, that Saddam Hussein was acquiring materials to build nuclear weaponry. She came out recently and said that WikiLeaks is bad journalism. Could you imagine this coming from her mouth? They can't stand us, Alex, because we're exposing the game and we don't suck up and bow down.
It's incredible. She also came out and called for civility in media, but her lies and her publishing of those government lies knowingly helped cause all our dead troops and all those dead people overseas and the goodwill of the U.S. that's in so much trouble and these failed wars. It's fine when they lie about WMDs. It's fine when government does things like that to kill people, because they're not going to show us all the dead Iraqi kids on the news. They're just going to try to use this dead 9-year-old to take our liberties domestically. They know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, you look at the front page coverage whenever it's a Veterans Day or whatever in the New York Times. It's pure propaganda. Oh, and I was mentioning before about current events forming future trends. I mentioned China. Two things before I go on. One is that as the American media is so focused on this Arizona tragedy, as a trend tracking tip, watch the rest of the news going on around the world, because there are big things happening that are going to change the direction of things. One of them being what's going on in Tunisia. It's going on, and it happened in England. It's happening in Italy. The youth of the world are uniting against what's going on. The students of the world, they're angry and they're mad as hell, and they're not taking it anymore. They're rioting in the streets.
You predicted this 2.5 years ago on air. You said that the education bubble would pop worldwide because there are no jobs for these degrees.
Exactly. And they know the levels of corruption, what they call austerity measures you were talking about before. Raising taxes, lowering the minimum wage, losing jobs, losing pensions, losing benefits, added up. Students in the streets in France, in Italy, in Greece, in England, in Tunisia, in Turkey. It's happening in front of our eyes. Why did it happen in the U.S. during the 60s?
Final 5 minutes. Answer that question. Back in 60 seconds. Third hour coming up with Gerald Celente. All right, I'm going to blitzkrieg through stacks of vital news in the next segment. after Gerald Celente leaves us in about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to take calls for the balance of the broadcast, peppered with some other important news coming up. But I want to hear from you, 800-259-9231, and we'll get you up and on the air today. Gerald, you were making a point again when the break cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, go back to the 1960s, and I was there. I'm 64 years old, so I was prime draft meat in those days. Why were the students out in the streets? It was very simple. They were getting drafted, and they didn't want to go to Vietnam. Why isn't anybody protesting these Afghan and Iraq wars? And by the way, in this midterm elections, not a peep about cutting the military budget or ending the wars. Why aren't they there? Because their necks aren't on the line. Why are they protesting in Europe? Because their necks are on the line in a different way. They have a futureless future. They're in debt. They have no money coming in. The same thing is going to start to happen in the U.S. because these kids are facing mountains of debt. They have these university degrees in worthlessness. They're stuck home living with mommy and daddy. They're smart enough to know it's just like the days of, it's neo-feudalism. Now we have the kings and queens of commerce that are robbing us blind. But the difference is, back in the feudal days, they didn't have the kind of information that you're putting out there. They didn't have information from the Trends Journal. They didn't have all of this knowledge. They see what's going on, and they're angry. So the revolution is going to happen from the students. Because let's face it, when you're 18 to 30 years old, 28 years old, you know, you have these hormones raging through your body. You don't know any limits, and you're angry. You think they're going to be taking to the streets in protest. They have nothing to lose by doing it. They have everything to lose by not doing it. And I want to add one more point into it. As we're looking at these phony employment numbers, they're not accounting for all the young people that haven't gotten into the employment sector because they can't find any jobs. When you add that number in, you're looking at another 3 to 4 million that have never been put into the system.
Well, it's a recipe for disaster. And then you've got so many other people who their parents cook the dinner for them, never make them wash the plates, never make them do laundry, never make them do any work, and then they get into the workforce. I mean, it's not only that, you know, are the globalists cheating us, there's a lot of lazy, entitled people in this country, and now as reality dawns on them, government hopes to organize them into some type of political mob to, you know, be the jackboots to rob those of us that do work. But I just don't see that happening. I mean, an army of entitled slobs, you know, does not make an effective Gestapo.
No, but you might find them at the TSA, you know. No, you're right. No, they won't be able to stop it. It's happening. It's happening. Again, only look at the news. And that's what I'm saying, and I want to make that point again as a trend forecaster. We're looking at the other news going on around the world. Again, Turkey, Tunisia, Greece, Italy, England, France. The students are up in arms. The tuition rates increased 200% in the UK as they're cutting back on everything. Oh, and by the way, we're going to raise the value-added taxes. Oh, and your property taxes, they're going to go up too. We're going to squeeze every nickel and dime out of you. All of a sudden, Alex, these dim-witted bureaucrats who never come up with a bright idea, they know that they have to have the money coming in so they can keep their jobs.
And now they want to cow us to not have political free speech. Gerald Celente, thank you for joining us so much. We'll be right back. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.